Hey, how's it going, everybody? Thanks for stopping by the channel today. So, we got here, I'm working on this Power Stroke pressure washer. It's a 2200 PSI model. These, I don't believe they're made anymore. They're definitely discontinued, but you could have found them in several different appearances and like configurations and stuff like that. I have the 2200, and this thing is having an issue where it starts and then stalls when you put it off a choke. So you move the lever this way off a choke and keeps dying. And last year it did not do that. I used it a few times earlier this year and it had some surging issues, but it didn't really do anything weird. But now I need it for a job and it won't stay running. So actually I'm gonna attempt to start it and show you guys what it's doing. Alright, so I got some fuel in it. We're gonna turn the fuel on. I know this isn't hooked up to water, but it does act differently when it's hooked up to water. I'm just kind of getting a basic thing here going on. And let's see what it does on choke. So I didn't really mention this in the video, which is why I'm mentioning it now, but a lot of times when small engines do not want to run when you put it off choke, like if they want to stall or just die, is because it's not getting enough fuel. That's most likely the reason. So the way chokes work is, they're closed to restrict the air coming in when you first start it, so it runs a little rich, has a better chance of starting and warming up. But obviously, if you're not getting enough fuel once you put it off choke and have more air coming in, if there's not enough fuel to match the amount of air coming in, it's going to want to die. So that's probably what's going on here. Either way, I think earlier it was probably surging so bad to the point where it actually was dying. The RPMs are getting too low. So that's probably what was going on. Just wanted to mention that. Okay, so we still definitely have a surging idle issue. Once it's warmed up, I turn it off and try and restart it. It doesn't want to start off choke, which it should. If it warms up correctly, shouldn't have a problem starting off choke. But I suspect there's definitely an issue with the carburetor. Probably needs cleaning, something like that. So I'm gonna get this up on my makeshift table here and we'll start taking this stuff apart. 2200 PSI is not a crazy amount of pressure for something like this anyway, but when it's surging, you're losing pressure. And other machines, maybe you can deal with it, but pressure washers, you'd like to have that full pressure all the time. So let's get this up and see what we can do. Yeah, this isn't the greatest setup, but this is kind of what I have right now. Don't have a fantastic light source. So if we don't have to put money into it, that would be great. Yeah, I can already see I'm going to have an issue with the shadows over here, but we'll try and see what we can do. So let's get this air box off so we can see the carburetor. So the air box is pretty easy. You just see these two tabs that go in there. You push those down and out, and then out comes the lid. And we'll just check this. Filter looks pretty good. Looks like we have, I'm assuming, two 10 millimeters right here. Yep, it is 10. They are 10, so just gonna use this. This is just easier for now. Okay, and this hose back here goes into the back of here. So you have to make sure when you pull this off, you can see it mounts in there. You got to get back there and pull that off. I'm gonna do that. Here's our carb. Looks like there's a little metal plate here, like a spacer, something like that. Gasket came off, looks pretty good. I don't have another one, but I don't have another one. I'm just gonna reuse it. This is for the choke, and this is the linkage for the governor, which the governor is this rod right here. Comes out of the bottom of the engine, and it basically controls the throttle plate, which is back here. And then we have a little idler screw, and then under here we have a jet that luckily we can take out easily on this one. Down here, drain for the bowl, and then this is the mounting screw for the bowl. So I'm gonna get this off. So I just used a pair of needle nose pliers to remove this fuel line from the inlet right there, and I got a little container and a little bit of, see that black stuff in there? A little bit of garmushki came out, but that's, I mean, it's an old line. I don't know exactly how old this machine is, but that's to be expected. So now what we have to do is remove, well, you can see the carburetor is loose. So there's fuel still in the bowl. I'm not going to take that off yet. So what we have to do now is get these two linkages off, which means we have to take off this plate for the choke. I believe this is a 10 millimeter as well. Let's check. Yeah, okay, pretty sure everything on here is going to be 10. Nice. Okay, so I've got these loose, and what you'll kind of maybe be able to see back there is a spacer. So we have spacer, goes behind there, mounts in those holes back there. Okay, so now we just lift this up, pull it out. And there's our throttle rod, I mean our choke rod. Try and pull this carburetor off. And I want to make sure the gaskets come out nice too. Okay, they appear to be coming out nice. Okay, rod came off, popped off. I just got to get that little spring out, which I'm gonna need 2 hands. Okay, so didn't really have to twist it. You know, it just goes right in the top of there. This hook right here. So now that our carburetor's off, I'm gonna dump it, and we'll see about cleaning it. Well, God bless it. I should have just turned my flashlight on this whole time on my phone. Makes a lot better. Okay, so actually what I've realized is that it's going to be easier to have this carburetor mounted again to drop the bowl. So I'm going to drop the bowl here, and it's another 10 millimeters down here. So I just kind of threw it back on the studs, and I'm going to get... Okay, I actually drained it, took out this screw right here, and the bowl, I took that bottom one out. Not a lot of fuel came out. Now this should really... Okay. A little rust in there, but it looks like the... Hold on a second. The gasket doesn't look great. I mean, it came out in one piece, which is good because I don't have another one. Usually they do. Sometimes they're all messed up, but yeah, we're gonna probably just clean up this O-ring or this gasket so that way it seals back up there nice. But I'm not really seeing any junk in there, which is good. So we'll put that down. And now let's take the carburetor back off. Like I said, this is idle adjustment, and under here is one of the jets. Can't remember what they call that. So what you want to make sure you see this little pin right here that holds the float on. That can sometimes pop out if you're not careful on these, and you don't want to lose it. So what I'm going to do now is just start spraying it out with carburetor cleaner everywhere. I'm actually going to remove the needle and take out the jet down there too. And we'll just start spraying this down. And then actually I'm going to try and I'll show you how to get this out, because this a lot of times can get clogged up and cause some of the surging problems, and you just want to clean everything if you can remove it. Alright, I'll show you what that looks like in a second. Okay, so took that little pin out, stole that pin out, which goes right on the back here, right through there. Took out the float so we can see the seat, or the needle rather. And I know the camera, it's not really focusing, but that was nice and clean. Now you can remove that jet. You can see it has provisions for like a screwdriver to get in there. But I can already see that the hole is... Well, also I sprayed carburetor cleaner in it, and I did see some coming through. So that jet is not plugged. So I'm not going to remove that. But if you did want to, just get a flathead screwdriver that's small enough, get in there, remove it. So now I'm going to take out, I'm almost done taking it out, but this throttle adjustment screw. Now the reason we need to take this off is because we have to get to this jet underneath it, which is plastic, I think. So let me see if it just pops up. Hold on. Okay, so I had to use some needle nose pliers to get underneath here and get this popped up. So as you can see here, it's got a jet in there. So there's a lot of different ways you could clean these tiny little passages out on carburetors. I bought this set. Has a bunch of brushes, some more even smaller, finer rods, and cleaning, they call them brushes, but they're really not, to get in all sorts of little passages. I bought this for I think $2 online or something like that, but it's come in handy before. So I think one of these, there's a really tiny one somewhere. I'll have to find it, and I'll be able to get in there and kind of clean that out. Alright guys, so it looks like even my smallest size cannot get in there. The jet hole in there, you probably can't even see it. It's so small. Now, there are like micro drill bits that pretty much look like these. If I had something like that, I probably could twist it, push it through, and make the hole slightly larger. And that way I know I'm getting through. Or if I had an even smaller one that was, I don't even know if they make the micro drill bits that are smaller than these. I mean, these are pretty freaking small. So I did clean this with carburetor cleaner, and there's a little a little O-ring here. Make sure you don't ruin that. So I don't know. I believe it to be clean at this point. I guess there's only one way to find out. Put it in, but maybe you can order this separately. I'm sure you can. I'm gonna try and put all this, put this back together, and get the carburetor back on the machine. Okay, so I roughly got the carburetor all the way back together. Now that jet, that black plastic thing, it is kind of tough to put in, so I had to tap it in a little bit. And then when I put this idle screw back in, what you're probably going to want to do before you take it out, it's not super important, but I counted exactly like three and a half threads. I just screwed it until I could see that again. Before I took it off, I made note. When you put the bowl back on, you want to put it in this orientation, and like this is the front of the carburetor, and it has a kind of a shape so it clears the float and everything like that in there. So you want to make sure you put the bowl on exactly how it came off. So now I'm going to set this back on the old machine. Okay, so I have the carb back on, and you can see here the governor rod. It just kind of sits in here on the top right there. So you just move that linkage around a little bit, and then this little tiny spring, you know, you just feed right in that hole. Now for this, the choke plate, or the choke lever, you're gonna notice down here that this is the like governor return spring. So that actually attaches on the back of this to, you see those two little holes right there. That's where that goes. So when you put this on, you're gonna have to go down there. I can't do it with one hand. Scoop that spring in, mount this plate up, but before you do that, you need to, now watch this, see if I can do it. Yeah, you want to get that linkage in like that. You know, you have to tip it in kind of from the top. Now I'm going to put the phone down for a second so I can get that spring on and put those bolts in. Got to remember, there are spacers too. Okay, so I got this plate back in, so now we'll push the carburetor on, and remember, you don't want to forget your little spacer plate right there and your gaskets in the back here. So now you can just tighten down these screws. and pull that back on choke. So we should have all our linkages. All our linkages back in. Also, don't want to forget, you have this spacer that it only goes on one way. Try and make sure you don't screw up your gaskets if possible, if you don't have spares. Okay, there it goes. As you're putting this on, you got to get it in that fitting, so can't do it with one hand. So okay, so it's all put back together. Sometimes these are kind of hard. Once you put this cover on, you really got to kind of bang these back in, but hold this case so you don't screw it up. Hold this with one hand, tap this with another hand to get these in. I'll just turn the fuel on now just to make sure we don't have any leaks. I did plug in this fuel line down here. So I'm going to take this down. It's getting a little bit dark. I'll try and start this. Cold start it. Okay, so it surged a little bit when it first started up, but I mean it went away and kept running. It was running way better than before. So now I've hooked up the water and gonna try and see what it does when it's actually trying to put out pressure. Alright, it's still on run, so release some pressure there. I'm gonna see if it'll start without the choke on. So that wasn't too bad. I mean, it surged a little bit, but once it warmed up, hey, that was pretty good. Put out some good pressure, didn't stumble at all. I mean, this is as far as I'm going to take this machine. I mean, I think it was just a carburetor clean. Hopefully I got that little pilot jet or whatever that's called clean. There must have been something going on there because it was really surging bad before, and up until I guess today when I started earlier, it wanted to just shut off after a few seconds. So something was going on. It could have been fuel related. A lot of times small engines need to have pretty nice clean fuel unless you're going to run an additive in it. So hopefully that helped you guys out. And if you have any questions, I mean, a lot of this stuff can apply to almost any pressure washer as well. So comment below if you have any questions, and thanks for stopping by.